The common Jew believed all sorts of things to this day, as we all know. Hazal knew that these things were nonsense, not to be believed, that only foolish people would believe such things. On the other hand, Hazal were perfectly aware that most people are foolish. In fact, that's generally a healthy attitude to humankind in general, that most people are not too clever, even if they have a bunch of degrees after their name, and or sometimes precisely because they have a number of degrees after their name. And I didn't say that lightly, by the way, or simply tongue-in-cheek. It's entirely true. Sometimes the more a person is supposedly educated, the less they actually understand about all manner of things, at least certain simple, basic, fundamental things. Rav Kook discusses this in one or two places, that the common people often understand very important and fundamental things much more clearly and more intuitively than all manner of highly educated, well-read people who are so confused by all the things they've seen and read and accepted, and all kinds of belief systems and ideologies that they have invested in, that they're incapable of understanding the simplest thing that the greengrocer down the street will understand perfectly well. And we see this with our own eyes. There are all manner of people with as I said, with all manner of letters after their name, who will tell you that there are 72 genders. But the common, straightforward person on the street will tell you there are only two. How does he know that? Well, it's just common sense, and it's obvious. And there's nothing to discuss. But in the eyes of some other person, there is everything to discuss, and it's entirely unclear. And that's just one example. Often intelligence has nothing to do almost with wisdom, with understanding the most simple things. A good example, by the way, also in the realm of politics, or policy, or diplomacy, or leadership, or call it what you will. I'm thinking at this moment of the evil anti-Semitic fool who recently died by the name of Jimmy Carter, famously known at one time as Jimmy Who, when he first ran for president in the 70s, which I recall. People had no idea who he was. It would have been much better for the world in general had it remained so. He was one of the more intelligent people who have achieved the office of the President of the United States, according to all accounts. He was an intelligent man. Read a lot, was a speed reader, could read a lot and retain a lot. And yet he understood nothing about how to be president, how to do the right thing for America and for the world. We saw this with the way the Iranian hostage crisis played out, and we saw this in every possible field of endeavor. The person who followed him in office, Ronald Reagan, not particularly sharp or intelligent or well-read, but he had a basic understanding of some fundamental truths. And Carter was unable to release the hostages, and Reagan was, by simply threatening the Iranians with certain consequences, because Carter couldn't imagine using force. That wouldn't be right, obviously. That would be immoral. That would be, imperialistic. It would be continuing the domination of the non-white races or something along those lines. And the same was true of everything else. The only American president to visit the grave of another great humanist and peace-loving individual known as Yasser Arafat was Jimmy Carter. because such a person can truly believe that this person was a good person, whereas a normal person with a healthy mindset would understand that this is the opposite of the truth. So, who was the better president for the United States and for the world? The intelligent Jimmy Carter, or the less intelligent but wiser Ronald Reagan? We know the answer. Some would tell you, and they very possibly are correct, that it was Ronald Reagan, together with Margaret Thatcher and a few others perhaps, who brought down the Soviet Union by threatening and forcing them into an arms race which they couldn't afford, and other things as well. So, and by be willing to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan by way of proxies, something that Carter probably would not have done. So time and time again we see that formal education is not always the path to wisdom. That is something to keep in mind. And you can see this today as well. You see clearly today there are all types of people who may be very well educated and very intelligent, but they will believe that if they have a certain problem or issue they wish to receive guidance for, that opening up a book of letters from a certain Rebbe will, on a certain page, in a certain manner, according to some strange formulation, will provide the answer. How can the person believe such a thing? Only Hashem can tell you. I certainly cannot, but we see that such things exist. And the same is true for, there are hundreds and thousands, infinite number. There is an infinite number of examples. So Hazal knew, to return to the matter at hand, Hazal knew that people in general, particularly people lacking wisdom and understanding, will believe all kinds of things. And this is important to understand, that there were always people within the Jewish people who believed all manner of things which are not in line with the Torah, which are not permissible according to the Torah, and yet many, sometimes a majority of the Jewish people, believe such things. And I think the same is true today, with all kinds of beliefs and practices and customs and what have you. So the fact that we know that, for instance, in the Golan that were found, you can see this in the museum in Katzrin in the Golan, all kinds of incantations and amulets and kame'oth, etc., were found inscribed on various materials, often on metal scrolls, tiny metal scrolls, etc., on which were scratched certain words and formulae and what have you, and appeals to this angel and that and what have you. Such things were clearly not uncommon. In fact, likely they were very common amongst many, many people, the common people, and probably also some more intelligent people. But that doesn't mean it's correct, and it doesn't indicate that it is true. And it's not a sign of wisdom, but quite rather the opposite.